Nice to see you again, DB Cooper, original legend of the Manchester United Muppeteers. Jevin, nice to see you, my man. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Just make sure, let me know if you can hear me. It's obviously going to be a delay from when I'm talking, but please let me know if you can hear me. Please let me know. I have way too much hair to be a Glazer, sorry to say. Sorry to say. Great. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. I'll give it a minute, allow some more people to come pop in and hang out. Hear you. Can't see me. Why not? You can't see me? I think you could see me. Loud and clear, Jimbo. James, yes. Call that Winios. Hear you. Great. Fantastic. 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 Thank you all for joining. Obviously, it's been an eventful day, hey? With everything. I'm sorry. I'm just going to move just something real quick. And then, yeah, obviously, I don't usually do videos on the weekends because I don't really have the time for it. Plenty of family stuff, things like that. But obviously, this is a huge moment today. It's a huge moment in Manchester United history, and I'll get to all your questions. I promise. I want to answer every single thing I can. I do. I want to answer everything that I can. So we'll get through it all. Obviously, let's just run through a little bit of what's happened here, and then I'm going to get into a little more details and answer every question that I possibly can. And if I don't know, then I will tell you that I don't know. Okay, that's what I'll always say. If I do not know something, I will tell you that. No empty promises. Yeah, the live will be saved on the channel as well. It should be saved automatically, so you should enjoy that. All right. So obviously, since June, things have been, yeah, don't worry. We'll talk about the debt. We'll talk about the debt. I get way too distracted on lives. That's why I like doing videos because I want to get to your questions, but I have a hard time tuning them out until I can get through everything that I can. So let's go. Starting in June, obviously, there was the story where Jim Ratcliffe was very close, and then Qatar put up multiple more bids, and things kind of stalled out from there. We've had very little noise in that period of time. We've had very little noise for that 5 months since that time, 4 months since that time, I guess. Last month, I was told, and by a source on the side of Ineos, where a lot of my information on this has come from, that they had reopened discussions with Glazers and Rain and held some detailed and in-person discussions regarding a restructured offer that they felt would be able to get around some of the concerns and perhaps make a deal. Some of the concerns were obviously issues with the purchasing of just the Class B shares, but also things like that where there was other issues too. And what it really came down to is that if all the Glazers wanted to sell, they could have avoided the legal issues that Ineos ran into as well. The Glazers could have converted their shares and sold they could have converted to shares and to Class A shares and sold the Class A shares to Jim Ratcliffe, and he would have owned the majority of Class A shares. And they could have done that, and that would have avoided any legal issues, but they didn't. They didn't because a big part of this has been the insistence of Joel and Avram to not want to leave, at least not in the present, and to want to get a bigger payment in the end. So they've been working on a deal to get around this. And one of the key aspects to this that is really important, because this is the only way I can support it, this is the only way almost anybody can support it, is it must be done in a way. I will get to the questions about the women's team too. Absolutely. It is a good question. It's worth asking. It has to be done in such a way that obviously it's not just business as usual with Jim Ratcliffe and the Glazers, okay? That it's not just he buys in and then the Glazers go on with their merry way and nothing changes. That doesn't work for anybody. That's not a bid I wanna support, that's not a bid you wanna support. I don't think there's a United fan that wants to support that. And, it's not like Sir Jim Ratcliffe doesn't know that, but you also have to recognize and logically think through a couple of things. What Why would Jim Ratcliffe do this offer for no control? Even financially, it doesn't make any sense. First of all, he offered 6 billion valuation, which was, probably 2 times what the club is worth. You're not making a profit on flipping this ownership stake, so it's not a buy and flip. There was a clue in that he made an offer for Barcelona that was between 2 to 3 billion, offered to put up the money to renew their stadium, and it had stipulations that he could not sell those shares to anybody else. The idea was, and is the same with United, this the way he thinks, is get in there, get a part of the ownership, take a staged buyout towards the future, but in the meantime, I wanna be able to have some control. I wanna have the ability to make change, I wanna have the ability to do something, and that's what it was all about. I said in September that Jim Ratcliffe would walk away from the bid if he did not have control over things, even if he was buying in as a minority partner. And, The Athletic today, as part of what they have said, have confirmed that, but we'll catch up there. So those talks went on and continued, and then in the last week or so, I basically heard around the same time that these other reports were coming out that it was, restructured, that essentially it has won. Now today, Sheikh Jassim and Qatar pulled out of the bid. It looks like there's an agreement for Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos to come in and take over with their initial minority stake. There's a board meeting to ratify it. An important thing to note is that the board meeting is a legal requirement, but it's unlikely to change. Based on the wording that has been said now, it's unlikely to change this. The board is made up of the Glazers. If there's an agreement between the Glazers and Rain Group and Ineos and Sir Jim, those are the people who are voting and have control over all of this. So if they've already agreed, then the board meeting is simply the legal requirement that then would be followed by a statement, by filings to the SEC, by all sorts of things like that as a part of the public company. So that's kind of what led us to today. Now, a few things were very important. Number one, that he always would want to have some degree, if not total control over the matters of football. He is not buying Manchester United as a commercial entity. Okay, that's important to understand. It's a fact. He is not buying Manchester United to take a profit. He has already said that as an owner, he does not believe in dividends. At Nice, he has invested over 100 million into the club. This is not propaganda. This is not PR. These are the realities of what I've been told and the realities of what have happened. They've invested 100 million plus into Nice, which is, for a club of that side, fairly significant. And well, it's 100 million more than the Glazers have ever invested into Manchester United. And when you consider what they've taken out of it, it's about 1 billion and 100 million more than what they have ever put into Manchester United. He's not doing it to make a profit or turn it into a cash cow for Ineos, much like none of his sporting projects have essentially gone that way. So that is just important because there's a lot of disinformation in terms of the mindset of people thinking about why he would be doing this. And you have to start with that, because if that much is true, then it's going to align you with a lot more of the plan and the thought process going through it. As a part of the bid, he's asking for sporting control as well as control of a few other factors. And an important part of this is one of the stipulations that I was told about that I put in my video yesterday is if he were to invest money into Manchester United, take money from Ineos, from wherever, and put it into Manchester United, then he would be able to have total control of those funds. So let's say he wanted to pay the debt off, he could. And he would be able to take that money and put it in there. I know a lot of people want to know, why don't we get these plans told to us already? Because he can't. These are not the types of things you are essentially going to be saying ahead of a deal being made. Once the deal is agreed, then plans can start to be published. Then things can go into action in terms of what someone wants to do. It is not prior to a takeover, these are not the things you start putting into action. In addition, because it's a publicly traded company, there's even things you don't want to do. HB Greg, thank you. I don't expect people to donate in here, so I want to acknowledge that. Thank you for your correct and consistent info on this. You and Phil have been spot on. Hope you keep making content for us. Thank you very much for saying that, Greg. I really appreciate it. Again, I don't expect people to donate and things like that in these live streams, but really, thank you. That means a lot. Um, so he can invest in here, and please give me just a few minutes, and then I will answer questions. Otherwise, my mind will wander, and I will never get through what I want to get through first. But I'm not ignoring what you're saying. I do see it. Um, so he would be able to have control over money that would be put in. There are other potential avenues wherein one can be putting funds into the club that even if it's seen as a loan from Ineos, can be a loan that turns into equity, not a loan that has to be paid back. There's a lot of ways that money can be invested into the club. Um, in terms of the debt, the initial the initial intention of Ineos was certainly to take the debt off Manchester United books and put them on Ineos books. Now, some people don't like the idea of that. I'm not going to tell you how to feel about certain things, but what I will tell you is that Ineos has on the regular carry billions in debt. Considering the amount of revenue that they regularly have, the size of their business, that's not unusual. Carrying a little more Manchester United debt wouldn't be a problem for them. In terms of when, how, and how much it matters, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know how the minority bid aspect of this in starting will affect things. But what I do know is this: the route is for full control and eventually 100% to take it off the market. I'm sitting here in my house, and I'm going to give you a good example of this. I'm on my patio now. Okay, I bought this house. I did not pay 100% cash. Almost nobody who buys a house, unless they're extremely wealthy, pay 100% cash. If you go and put 20% down on a house, which is usually the minimum that is asked for, the bank owns the other 80%. So let's say that's the situation Sir Jim Ratcliffe is in now. 20% he owns, 80% owned by somebody else. I have a contract with the bank that I will continue to be buying up pieces of the house over years, and eventually I will own the majority and then all of it. Given that I have that contract, I will happily invest. I will happily fix up the floors. I will happily renovate things. I will happily put my own money into it because this is going to be my property later on in full and I will own it. And so that would be the analogous to what Jim Ratcliffe would be going through here. If he has a contract now, if he has in this agreement that he will be able to take over the club, um, for the majority and for the long term, then there's no reason that he would not start investing at the moment, which was always planned. Okay. And so while I do not have the exact specific plans, and I wouldn't say that I will get them, at least not now, I think they'll be published after this is ratified. Um, those were in the initial plans, and that shouldn't change with the goal that he's taking over the club over the long term and with those options being built into the purchase. Does that make sense? I hope it does. It should not change the idea that he'll be able to invest in the long run. Let me get back to a couple of these things because people paid money. What happened to the stadium, training grounds, all of that? Totally. I'll get to that. Um, plans with existing debt. Um, yeah, the comparison to Manchester United buying a house using a loan is actually quite apt. I'm sorry you don't understand that. So Okay, so when it comes like I said, when it comes to the stadium, the goal has always been for Ineos as a part of this, that the whole one of the main reasons they want to invest in one of the main plans would be the stadium. It takes long enough to renovate or rebuild or build a new stadium in general that it should not stop them from starting on a project like that right away. If it takes 2 years or a year to renovate the entire stadium, then by that time, I would expect Jim Ratcliffe has majority control anyway. And what's the difference then? Whatever the plans are on that. I cannot say for sure which one it was, renovate or a new stadium. I don't know. Ineos have as their goal for Manchester United to be top class in all departments. It's what their focus is on, and that does absolutely include the women's team. You've seen with their whole sports thing, they like to get involved in everything. Obviously cycling, sailing, rowing, whatever it may be. If Ineos get involved, they invest, and that is the idea with the sports. From everything that I have heard as well, it would be the same with the women's team. They would, yeah, F1. They would be. I would absolutely expect them to want the same as they want for the men's team, the best in class for the women's team as well. And as far as I don't that it's hard to obviously it's much harder to get a lot of details on that. It's a newer area, but I do know in the initial conversations I had with people ages ago, it was that's just considered to be a part of Manchester United. It's not a separate entity. That's Manchester United. The women's team are a representation of the club, the same as the men's team are, and should be treated in the same way. Obviously, there's difference in scales of money, finance, things like that, but the investment should be there to help them. Okay, I think I've gone through everything I want to talk to. One more thing, actually, because I know there's going to be a lot of questions about this anyway. Way back in February, I put out a video on Jim Ratcliffe's plans on the football side of things, including people like Paul Mitchell. And as far as I know, I stand by that entirely. Um, you can go rewatch that video. I don't even remember everything that I was told and that I said back then, but none of that has changed as far as I know, and I will attempt to get more information as well. But the idea is, yes, um, big focus on reviewing the people that are there in place. Um, the reviewing the people that are in place, reviewing the structures that are in place, no matter what happens, that is going to occur, and there will be a review of the people who are there. In the long run, I could practically guarantee someone like Richard Arnold would be replaced, and that has just to do with the fact that any CEO is likely to be newly hired when a new company comes in. I think that following review, their whole idea is to continue to press upon a modern football structure and hire best in class people for it. They've spoken with people like Paul Mitchell. They've spoken with others. Um, they've spoken with Luis Campos. They've spoken with quite a few people in the search of who might be the best to head up the sporting project itself. Um, it's not like Sir Dave Brailsford is going to be the one running it. He's going to be him and Jim and such are going to be, looking at it, and making decisions on it and evaluating, but they're not going to be running the club itself. It's going to be the people appointed, the same as they've done everywhere in every sport. That is the way that Ineos approach things. So in that respect, there's a lot to be positive about. Obviously, the question is specifically how much control does he have in the interim, and how long until he has majority control. I don't have the 100% answers on that. I don't. I do know that, as I said, they've specifically stipulated that they want control over any money that they put into the club, so that if they're trying to pay off debt, it'll go. If they want to renovate the stadium, it'll go, and it can't be taken for dividends and things like that. And then, as it's also been reported elsewhere, that he wants a major, if not final, say in sporting decisions. One of the things when you do the math on all of this, should this go through as it's expected, while Sir Jim Ratcliffe will not be initially the majority owner, he will be the largest shareholder with the most votes. Um, the Glazers are not a united family, and I think that's an important distinction here. Even if he's going to get majority control, there's going to be a lot of stipulations in here. Um, there's 6 of them. There's 6 of them. And if he's in there with the largest vote, they don't always agree on everything. It dilutes their influence, exactly. And the thing that, again, I'll repeat, and then I'm going to go straight to questions for the rest of the video, is this has not been Jim Ratcliffe versus um, Qatar. That is an extremely narrow way of viewing this whole process. The Glazers have looked at sale options for years. They looked at selling to the Chinese to Chinese investors 5 years ago. And they put it off then. They've put it off because of the Super League. They thought they were gonna get a huge cash influx from that. They're looking at the future UEFA Super League, which is coming. There's a danger here. There is a danger here in this, if nothing had happened, and there's a lot of different ways this could have gone. Something that gets this would be the first time since the Glazers have taken over that they've reduced their ownership, okay? And I think that is far more significant than people are understanding, and I understand when you compare it to a full takeover immediately, that it can be disappointing, but it's reality, and sometimes we just have to face the facts. Nobody can force the Glazers to sell this club. Nobody can force Joel and Avram to let go. And Qatar were insistent on a 100% offer. If they'd been willing to do a 51%, I think they'd own the club right now. So, all right, let's get into questions. I'm just going to read them as they come, as I haven't been able to keep up with everything. I know they're there, so let's get into questions. Is Qatar definitely out, and can the Glazers still take out dividends with the changes in shares? So, as far as I understand it, all dividends have to be agreed by all shareholders in the way that United are set up. The things that are unknown on this is that it's previously been just the six Glazer siblings. With another person coming in and making it a seven-person partnership, essentially, it may be that there's a different ratification of bylaws. These are not laws, these are bylaws, things that are agreed upon within a business. So some of that may change, and so I can't answer that question entirely, but it's likely that it would have to be agreed by everybody. This is a business reality. One needs to look at it from a business. Yeah, yeah. Does this affect Nice at all? No, not at the moment. I don't have more specifics on the women's team. I'm sorry to say right now. Timeline for the 25%. The 25%, I think, is a matter of weeks. A matter of weeks to get done, and in effect, could be in place before January, and we'd see if that would help us for January. In terms of the overall timeframe that's been indicated to me, is that a majority takeover would be. I don't have an exact. So if I say before 3 years, people will think 3 years because that's how people think pessimistically. But 100% was supposed to be within 3 to 6. So you can think a majority is less than that. Maybe it's one. I don't have the details on that, but I know that that's what it is in terms of the time frame. I see some people apologizing probably from things we've said before, from maybe things that have happened in previous videos and comments and things. And don't worry about it. I don't hold grudges. They don't have to listen to Jim and his 25%. It's entirely based on what's agreed upon in the deal. It doesn't matter if he doesn't have majority control. They can agree to things completely separate to the number of votes, especially in certain areas. Yeah, Athletic article mentions Sir Jim Ratcliffe wanting sporting control for a premium. Exactly the point. Even if he only has 25%, he might be saying, look, but I want control of all sporting decisions and to be able to use the Manchester United budget for what I want it to use for. You can keep pursuing commercial deals. You can keep doing this and that. Whatever you want to increase the value of the club, fine. I'm taking care of the football. I'm happy to get rid of the Glazers, but I fail to understand how he can be a good option when he doesn't have the money for a full buyout, clearing the debt and renovation, where he would take the money. He's not going to take any money out of the club. And the issue is, unfortunately, nobody has the money because it's just not worth it to buy out the Glazers in full. Between debt, stadium, trading ground, where do you think Jim will focus first and foremost? I think on the stadium. The team, I would say specifically the team, first of all, in ensuring that they have the best. Ineos are massive on sports science and analytics, something that's dropped off heavily at United. And I think one of the advantages that people aren't recognizing, he already has an entire huge structure at Ineos of people who are involved in these areas and sports science and the rest of this and a lot of data. And they could bring very good people in pretty much right away. So I think there, and then the stadium. Oh man, there are so many questions that I'm missing a lot of these. I'm sorry. Apologize. Let me just keep going. I wouldn't say the manager's job is in danger. He's going to be measured by how well he does this year. I think I answered timescale for the full takeover. Price discount on Todibo next summer. Yeah, maybe Marcus Thuram too. Is Qatar completely out of the race? I don't know. They said they withdrew. That's probably as good as you need. Jeez. If Paul Mitchell was brought in, would he take over John Murtaugh's role as director of football? Likely, or be a sporting director. Work in tandem. There's a few different ways that can be structured. I think everybody involved would get to the end of the season, just for clarity's sake, in terms of the football side of things. I think everybody gets to the end of the season. That's enough time to give evaluation and catch up on the data. Will he have an impact on Jan window? Oh, what the hell? Keep scrolling away. And the FFP situation for following windows. Yes. So one of the things that has been talked about is allowable losses. The allowable losses limit in the Premier League is only like 15 million, and United kind of reached that limit. If you put money in, the allowable losses can go up to 100 million. And in terms of, I don't know if those numbers are exact, but it's about that. If you invest, you have a lot more leeway as far as FFP goes. And so any money, any cent that gets put in, literally, you invest 1 cent and that FFP allowable losses limit increases by 1 cent. So yes, any investment could improve on things. And like I said, I think this would just take a few weeks to be done. Once it's ratified in that board meeting, it's very fast. Yeah, not Marcus Thuram, Kefren Thuram. Sorry about that. Yeah. Sorry. Let me try to get to the bottom of these questions and catch up. I'm so sorry. Why should we trust an owner who couldn't win trophies at Nice? I think you should read your own question again, my man. Who's won trophies at Nice? They're doing pretty well this season, but it's a long road, and it's a one-team league where one team has for over a decade spent 3 times to 10 times as much as anybody else, and that would be the answer. So the way that he's buying it is no, it's not 25% of the Glazers shares. It's 12.5% of the total shares in terms of Class A. That's almost half of the Class A shares, and then 12.5% of the total shares in Class B, which is about 18% of the Class B shares. That's a little complicated, but that's what works. He will keep Nice. He will keep Nice at the moment. There's no plans to sell it right now. In the future, maybe. Class A shares are worthless voting-wise, yeah, pretty much worthless, but it's about, satisfying the minority shareholders who own some of those Class A shares. Can Glazers not veto any Ratcliffe decision? It depends on the bylaws. Yeah, I did the math on this. You have to realize that with the number of shares that Jim Ratcliffe is buying, by buying up an equal number from each Glazer, he's obviously diluting their amount and gaining. He will have the largest vote on the board of any of the 7 owners. Yeah, I don't think Ineos will sponsor us right now. It's really not like that. It's very funny what people think. The positive that I would take on this, and this I don't know, but there's some of this that I do, just to maybe this answers some questions. Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos had somewhere in the range of 4 billion set aside for football. They presented it for Chelsea. They presented it for United. By only investing 1.5 billion at the start, I think there's going to be quite a bit of money available. I don't know what the new plan is with the debt. If I knew exactly, I would tell you. The old plan was to transfer it onto Ineos's books. The new plan might be exactly the same, but I don't know. I would assume it may be the same. I just don't know when. I haven't been told it's different, but the deal has changed, so I don't wanna say something that I don't know. Is it possible Ineos could be I don't know the rules about the shirt sponsorships, but I assume that the deal we just got with Snapdragon and Qualcomm is fantastic deal, no need to change it. Could sponsor the stadium, could sponsor a few other things. Once the deal is done, I think communication will be more public. That's the simplest answer, and yeah, Nice could work as a feeder club. Do you think Jim Ratcliffe would have enough influence to bring in the director of football and sporting director? That's what he's asking for as a part of making this deal happen. I did the math the other day just on these questions with regards to how the B shares work and the A shares work. With what Jim Ratcliffe is buying, he will end up with about 21% of the vote, which it would be the largest number. Do I have concerns with Sir Jim Ratcliffe purchasing the club? Absolutely. Everything I'm telling you right now is info. It all has to be followed through. My view on this has always been this is just info. I don't believe everything. I need to see it, same as any of you. I'm in the same boat. I'm not telling you to believe it. I'm telling you the info. Same as through this entire process, I could tell you the info. Um, they have to follow through. They have to follow through. That is the number one thing that I would be concerned about. Can they follow through? How much of it is agreed? How much control and how much influence are in there? Um, it would have to be agreed. That would be, that's important. Those are my concerns. Can they follow through on all of this, put it in place, and how quickly? Ineos training ground, yeah, that wouldn't be bad. Um, Jim Ratcliffe is well aware of the blowback from this. I think he knows exactly how. I think the point is this: the blowback's going to be there, but it's the only way. That's the view, and he knows the only way he's going to win over people, as anybody would, just logically, is to follow through now and start making changes. And when people start making those changes, that's how they'll win them over. And my view on it is I'm going to approach this despite all the information with an open mind and judge based on what I see happening in the real world from here forward. Do you expect a few decent appointments to get the fans on side? I do. Those are the exact things that I do expect that they will do. I expect that they will look to immediately start making any changes they can to appoint top class people and put some investment in. Yeah, the protests will continue. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Keeping the pressure on the Glazers to sell may just help speed up the process. It's impossible for me to say what will happen by January. I don't know. I mean, let me put this way about Sir Jim Ratcliffe, okay? He's been more public during the takeover process than the Glazers have in 20 years. So I think, yeah, he'd be very public with his plans with people once this is done. If the Glazers don't allow him sporting control, I don't think this deal happens, but I think that's been the subject of discussion for the last month. As I mentioned about a month ago, I heard that they had approached those talks, but that control would be a big part of it. Given what The Athletic have reported today as well, that it was contingent essentially on that control, I don't think we get to today's stage without them having agreed to that. In terms of the detailed specifics, I don't have much more for you, sorry. In terms of departments and things like that, I think they're gonna look at everything. A lot of the questions now, I think I've answered everything I possibly can, in terms of specifics. So I'm probably going to end it here in a minute because I don't think there's much more that I can give you guys at right now. I think anybody should remain skeptical of everything that's going on right now, and keep an open mind, but judge based off what you see in the real world, and that's simple. All right, I'll try to explain one more time the Class B and Class A and stuff like that. The Class B shares take 169% of the total shares are Class B shares. Those are the voting shares. They're split among the 6 siblings, and they don't all own an even amount, but think that they own between, 12% and I think 19% of these Class B shares. They're gonna sell from them each of them are gonna sell 3% of their shares. 3% of the Class B shares. So that's would give Jim Ratcliffe about 18 or 19%, and it reduces their shares from 19 to 16, 18 to 15, 17 to 14, these kind of numbers. And so in that way, he would end up with more Class B shares than anyone else. Joel's football advisor was indicated in an article way back when on the manager process. It says who it was. The Athletic revealed it. I would advise going and looking back at their deep dive into how the manager was selected. It names a person that is hired by Joel Glazer as an advisor. Okay. Um, if you're asking the question repeatedly why I didn't want Qatar, I think I've covered it in the past many, many times. What my views are personally in terms of preference. I think it takes a lot more expertise with the way that football is going than just hoping to throw money at something. With FFP caps, percentages on how much you can spend on wages, and a lot of the rules that are coming in down the line, you can't just throw money into the problem. From a sporting perspective, I think that Ineos have a lot more experience and have a better are more likely to succeed than the Qatari bid. It's that simple. Nice hasn't failed. It's a silly thing to say that Nice has failed because you have to look at it relative to their position and where they're at today, and relative to where they started, and relative to the size of their club, and relative to the fan base, and relative to the league that they're in, and all of that. Okay. All right. I'm going to end it there. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for joining me today. And I'll definitely update as I can on anything else that I find out over the next days, weeks. I'll be live on Monday with Phil in our weekly podcast. So thank you for watching. Thank you all for being a part of this. Thank you for remaining respectful in the chat and answering questions, things like that, asking me questions and everything. And yeah, let's see what happens. Again, at the end of the day, this isn't up to me. This isn't up to you. This isn't up to anybody. It's up to the Glazers, and this is the best route that seems, or I would say, the only possible route that we seem to be getting. So let's leave it at that. Okay, I'll talk to you all later. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.